And my next guest is author Aimee Bender, and we're going to be talking to her about her new book, The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake from Doubleday. Now, she's going to be at the Friends of College of the Desert Library's author luncheon here in the Valley on Saturday, February 12th at 11:30 at the Rancho Las Palmas Resort in Rancho Mirage, and you can call the library at 760-333-0733 for information. I do want to mention that the College of the Desert Friends over the past 40 years have introduced 70 authors to the Valley and have raised over $500,000. So we are so excited, Aimee, about your being here in the Valley, and I am looking forward to seeing you there. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to coming down and talking.
Yes. Well, again, people are really looking forward to it and very, very excited about it. Now, The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake. That is such a great title. And why don't you give a brief overview as to what the book is about? And it's from Doubleday. I believe I mentioned that, and just out in 2010. So give a little overview about it.
All right. I'll do the best I can. I think in a lot of ways, I think it's a book about a family, but I tend to write in a way that is a little skewed, or to try to get at something through a side door in a way. So the initial side door in this book is that the main character is about to turn 9, and in the first chapter she discovers that she seems to have acquired this ability to taste feelings in the food, the feelings of the person who made the food. And she's pretty overwhelmed by all the feelings she's taking in. And so part of the book is about what she's discovering, and then it leads to a way to talk about the other members of the family as well.
Well, that's a great synopsis of the book, and the fact that she can actually taste the emotions of other people who prepare the food that she eats is... It's just an amazing concept that you've come up with, and how did you come up with the idea for this book?
I'm not totally sure, but the way I've been thinking about it recently, I mean, I kept circling around this idea of food carrying more than just the food itself, and I think there's a little passage in 100 Years of Solitude, which is a book I love, that has some of that, or there maybe been little clues in my own reading, but I think in a way what I'm so interested in people and how we interact with each other and all the dynamics, and I wasn't thinking this directly, but just an awareness that I had, there was an awareness that I had that, what other object is usually there in any other social situation, and I think food becomes almost a kind of extra presence, and there was a way that I could then give food all this, let it soak up all the complications and the human dynamics and be a kind of witness. And then, because it's like, if you just imagine, I'd say 95% of sort of social events where people are just freely interacting, there's some kind of food there somewhere.
Absolutely. And, but it's an amazing idea that you've come up with, really, and there's so much magic attributed to your writing, that there's this little element of magic. Now, when you first started writing, has there always been both food and this magical idea in your work?
There hasn't always been food, but I love food, and it was so fun to just really let myself write about it a lot and do things like take cooking classes and pretend that it was research, which it kind of was. But also,
I like that, to pretend it was research. That's great.
And it was like I used things from those classes, but ultimately I just really enjoyed taking the class, and I love to eat out in restaurants and all that. So
you're definitely a foodie, Aimee. There's no question about it.
I am.
Good for you.
Yeah, I do like, and I like that there's all this kind of excitement these days around food and where it's from. I am enjoying all of that. But yeah, I think the magic in writing sort of happened naturally as I was taking my own writing more seriously. It felt like the natural way for it to go. But the food was new, and it was just, I even like reading certain menus that are beautifully written. I will more likely return to that restaurant because I want to eat crusty French bread. Maybe it's an example of one that I always am a sucker for. If any dish has crusty French bread, it's completely the word crusty, even more maybe than the French bread. But
that's terrific. Well, you again, I have to say it. Then, if that's what inspires you and that's what draws you back to the restaurants, then there is a foodie in there. There's no question about it. Now, when you first started writing, did you start out as a short story writer, or how did you begin writing? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Did start with short stories, and I wrote short stories for a while before I wanted to try to expand into a longer form. And I really love short stories. I love reading them, and I like that it's a smaller space. I like the drive to finish the story has a really different feeling than with a novel, where I tend to wander for a while before I kind of know what's central.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and I guess the initial short stories, my first book that came out was a book of short stories called The Girl in the Flammable Skirt, and they were often described as sort of contemporary fairy tales, and I really love fairy tales. Those were probably the first short stories I ever read, and I read them repeatedly, and they were just so satisfying. So it was really fun to try to use those as a sort of base to write my own story.
Well, you've gotten a lot of good reviews for the particular sadness of lemon cake, and I like the fact that that in writing the reviews, people, for instance, Entertainment Weekly says to curl up with an Aimee Bender story is to thank heaven you ever learned to read in the first place. Now I think that's a great review. Did you like that when you saw that?
I love that. It was actually for an earlier book, but I still...
Oh, that's interesting.
And I can't...
Well, that's okay.
I was so
this is some of the PR material that that I got from you. Okay, well, listen, we don't care what book that's for. That's really terrific. Yeah, but the book, Particular Sadness, it's I guess a little sad, but it's also funny. It's profound, and it's a little strange.
Yeah.
How do you react to that?
I like hearing that. I mean, I think that would be my hope, is that it would be all of those things. I mean, I think it is. There is a lot of sadness in the book, but I would hope that it's a complicated mix unto itself.
Well, it is. That's right. And I know probably, I don't know how many interviews you've done about this, but I imagine everybody asks you why a lemon chocolate cake for the character in the book. Why that combination?
It's funny because I didn't know until the book came out that it's an unusual combination. I just, no one had commented on it in the early drafts and readings. So, but then I heard as soon as it was out, people were saying, lemon and chocolate are not usually together. But I picked it, I think, because I wanted it to be lemon because I think lemon is a complicated flavor and it's sour and then it gets sweetened, but it's a mix.
Mm-hmm.
In its way. And chocolate, I mean, it was a little girl requesting her birthday cake as a lemon chocolate cake. So I think for a kid,
sure,
a lot of kids are going to want chocolate no matter what.
Well, I'm sure since this book has come out, there's a lot of chefs out there and bakers trying to make a good lemon chocolate cake or combination thereof. I can't imagine, because certainly I've had some training in that area, and if I were out there baking, I'd want to try it and dedicate it to you. So has anyone gotten back to you and said, oh, I've made a lemon chocolate cake and it's great and you should try it?
Yeah, what's been really sweet is at various readings, people have brought one and they've all been kind of different. Like sometimes it's a bundt cake with chocolate or cupcakes or a flat cake. And so I've had more lemon chocolate cake in the last year. I like it.
Yeah, I hope you're not going to get tired of lemon cake because you know darn well it's going to be out there when you are talking about this book. So
very happy to read it.
Yeah, let's hope you don't get tired of it. Now, are you on a book tour now, Aimee?
I am kind of in between because I did most of my touring in the summer, but then the paperback of this book comes out in April, and I'll probably do a little bit more around then.
Uh-huh. Well, I want to remind the listeners that I'm talking to Aimee Bender about her book, The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake. And she's going to be appearing in our valley at the College of the Desert Friends of the Library at Rancho Mirage Resort. And you can call, and the date on that will be, let me see. Sorry, I'm getting that mixed up here. I'll get back to you with a date in just a minute. I've got a bunch of your notes here in front of me, Aimee, and I've just lost that date for the moment. But it's coming up this coming week.
Saturday the 12th.
That's right. Yes. And so they can get information by calling College of the Desert or the College of the Desert Library. Yes, it's February 12th at 11:30, and you can call the COD library. Now, what are you looking forward to? I certainly don't want you to give away what you're going to be talking about when you're here, Aimee, but are you going to be talking about your writing in general? Are you going to be concentrating on your latest book, or what's your plan?
Yeah, I think I'll probably talk more about the latest book, and I tend to really enjoy talking about writing process, or what are the ways that a story evolves, or what are the I guess pitfalls and high points of that process. So I think some of that, and so referencing this book specifically, but also just writing in general, because I think writing can become a way to talk about a lot of other things.
Absolutely, and of course, this group is quite a sophisticated group as well. We've got a lot of book clubs that will attend. And I'm sure everyone knows your work by this time. And I know that people always enjoy hearing about process and your thoughts and so forth. Are you going to talk about, too, the fact of that you're included in a genre called magical realism, and kind of clarify a little more what that's all about?
Yeah, I might. I mean, I think it's interesting to talk about because there are all these different descriptive words to talk about writing that isn't quite realism. And
right.
So, yeah, I think that can be an interesting discussion. And I'm hoping, and I think this is true, that there'll be space in the talk for questions, because I really like to bounce off of audience members, because it kind of lets me know what people are really interested in hearing about.
And they will make time for you, yes, for questions. So that will occur. And the whole idea of magic realism can be confusing to some people, but it's a little magic we know, realism we know. It's a little surrealism involved also. And I read in one article that you're probably among the top 5 most cited if other writers that write in that genre are asked to name their favorite. You're among the top 5. What do you think about that?
It's amazing. That's very nice to hear. I mean, it was a great experience for me when I felt like I could write in more magical storytelling modes, because I think I had assumed to be taken seriously as a literary writer, it had to be realistic. It had to be in the style of Updike and Fitzgerald and these, kind of landmarks of realism in America. But the truth is, I just like a skewed world. When I read and when I write, I just find it more emotionally engaging.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even articulate why, because I can track that back to being a kid.
Absolutely. That stayed with you.
Yeah.
I think one thing that probably the audience might be interested in, because certainly I know what surrealism is and what realism is and what magic is, but I think the difference between surrealism and magical realism, I don't know whether I suppose a reviewer that's reviewing the book is more interested in defining that than most. But I think people reading your books and reading reviews about your books might be interested in knowing, okay, what's the difference? So if I would ask, I'm going to ask you that if I get a chance to ask you a question at the luncheon. Well, I can't believe it, Aimee. We are out of time, and you're out of town, but you're going to be in town at the luncheon on February 12th at 11:30, and I look forward to seeing you there. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. This has been the Jacqueline Bachar Show. See you in 2 weeks. It won't be on next week. Bye now.